Hey, everybody. As we get set for a new year and the resolutions and goals that come with it, I want you to keep today's guest in mind. You may recognize the name George Gilder, who is well known as an author, economist, and futurist, predicting things like the rise of the microchip and the smartphone. Now 86 years old, George is still working and writing, and he says it's due largely in part to one hobby: running. George has been running for more than 75 years and he still runs almost every day. And he does that in Massachusetts, which, let's admit, is not easy to run in during the wintertime. Like any good writer, George did his homework before our discussion and he dives right in on my own running history and then some of the achievements of my daughter as well. This one will motivate you to get moving and stay moving as we all battle Father Time. I'm grateful for this thoughtful discussion and the inspiration that's provided by George Gilder. You read about that?
Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia's my daughter. Yeah, and she it was fun watching her run.
Yeah. Wow. That was the 1,600 meters. Did she do cross country too, or?
Yeah, she did cross country all 4 years of high school, and she finished as high as third in state. So placed
Wow.
placed all 4 years, and then in track she was able to grab a state title. So, and it was fun because I for cross country I help coach their team. I don't coach track, but I have to say it's been very rewarding to be able to help coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Have you done anything like that? Have you done any coaching in your running career?
Not serious coaching. I mean, I have two daughters who are runners, and I guess I coached them a bit, but I know systematic coaching, or I haven't been an actual coach.
Yeah.
At any point.
Yeah, I was more. I'm more of a distance runner than the stuff they do. But the main thing, so I'm kind of an assistant
you
coach.
Do marathons and ultra marathons.
Yeah.
I ascribe my longevity to without injury, without getting injured at age 86 now, to partly to not doing ultra marathons and this. But I don't know whether that instinct is wrong. But I did one marathon back in my youth in Central Park, one of the early Central Park marathoners.
Sure.
I think there were about 48 people in it, and I came in seventh, and I decided I was no good in the marathon. So
well,
did a three flat.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been doing it for 25 years. So, I think I hope I keep doing it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's about, and one of the things I want to ask you about is recovery. But I think if you're smart about the training and recognizing when you need to back off and thinking about, I mean, the recovery, I'm 55 now, George. So, compared to 20 years ago, I need more rest. I need to take care of my body a little bit more. And so if you do that, I think the longevity is there. And I mean, you've proven that for sure. When did you get started with running? Have you been doing it since you were a kid?
I've been doing it since I was a kid. So I've run for approximately 75 years.
Wow. Yeah. And how did you get started? Just like
school? It was a punishment at school. we would get up in the morning if you got demerits, and I was a pretty incompetent kid as a student, and I got lots of demerits. And the people with lots of demerits had to gather at 5 a.m. in the morning before. This is a private school in Lenox, Massachusetts. And we'd walk. The assignment was to walk with the headmaster around a big circle about 3.5 miles or something. And there was a runner there named Bobby Wilkins, and he asked the headmaster whether he could run it. And and would come up from Springfield where I'd run track, and the headmaster said, "Okay, you can run it." And I just found myself chasing him. I didn't ask permission. I just somehow spontaneously I saw him running off, and I chased him.
Yeah.
And I pretty much caught up with him, and I've been running ever since.
Yeah, so that's 10
Yeah.
years old, you're 86, you're still running. Was there ever a stretch in
That
there?
was 11 or
Or
12 years old,
okay,
I think.
okay. Was there a stretch in there, maybe when you had kids or any was there any stretch in there where you didn't run for a while?
I really don't think so. I
Yeah,
mean, I got injured. I didn't learn how to avoid injury for quite a long time. So I would get injured. I'd get Achilles or
yeah,
I'd get shin splints or something, and I'd have to stop. Or and in the winters, a lot of the time I did cross country skiing. So I would replace my running with cross country skiing up hills and major skiing efforts.
yeah.
And so I did that quite a lot, but I never really stopped running any prolonged period of time.
So what about now? So you're in Massachusetts, what correct? And
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
you how are you staying active during the winter? What are you doing to
Well,
stay
so
fit?
far I run in good weather. I run on dirt roads around
Uh-huh.
here, but when the dirt roads are too snowy, I I get relegated to the main roads, which are asphalt, but have a few more cars than you really want to have when you're running.
Yeah.
So, but I ran 6 miles yesterday. And I run up hills. I do a lot of quite steep uphill running, and that's been important to my training for decades. Lots of uphill running.
Yeah.
I was a trail racer for a long time,
Uh-huh.
and I won the national hill racing championship at one point, and I really liked running up hills. And then about how many years ago was it? About probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago, running on Greylock, the Greylock trail race up Greylock Mountain, which
Uh-huh.
is about a 3,000-foot mountain in western Massachusetts. I fell on the
Uh-huh.
trail and hit my head and cut my temporal artery
Oh boy.
and was just bleeding uncontrollably and would not be here. You could not be interviewing me if there hadn't been two nurses in the race behind me,
Wow.
and they came and stanched my bleeding for an hour, at which time I was taken up the hill on a stretcher by a bunch of firemen who ended up being put on a helicopter to Albany Medical
Oh
Center,
man.
where I was sewn up by a doctor there, Lauren Whipple, I think her name was.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, she sewed me up, and that's why I'm here. But really, I realized that I wasn't as nimble. You know, if
Yeah.
you doing trail races, you can't fall a lot, or
Yeah.
so I
I
had to stop trail races after about 20 years of trail racing and hill racing. So
yeah.
now I'm on roads. I'm
Yeah.
relegated to roads, but uh but I'm national champion at
Yes, I know.
10K on the road and second in the world, supposedly. It's just really because I go to these meets, but I did do it. And
Yeah, let's I want to
um,
talk about that, George. You're second in the world in the 10K, I think 85 and older. And
you know,
you got this guy from Mexico that beat you out, right?
yeah, but yeah, it came from 9,000 feet. I
Oh,
I did
he
know
trained in altitude. Yeah,
he lives in a town in Mexico,
yeah.
above Mexico City at close to 9,000 feet.
Okay,
But anyway, he was 86 though, and I was 85.
yeah.
So
So you're number 1 in the US, number 2 in the world, and I think when people find
I doubt it. I doubt it. But I did win those
you
races,
want
and
it.
I won. I'm more proud of winning 3 major 15K races with thousands of runners,
Yeah.
including scores of over 80. The Gate River down in, I guess it's in Tallahassee, is it?
Mhm.
Maybe Gate River Run.
Yeah.
And Boilermaker and Utica and Stockadathon and Schenectady. I actually came in second over 80 in Gate River, but I set a record for my time over by several minutes
That's excellent.
over 85. So that
Yeah.
was,
I think when people hear this, George, they're going to say, first of all, they're going to say, "Wait a minute, is that the same George Gilder that I'm thinking about?" Right? So you probably get that at time, like, "Wait, aren't you the author and the, the think tank guy?" Which I do want to ask you about that, but they're going to say you're still talking about running daily in your mid 80s, and so the follow up question is, how do you do that? You haven't taken the time off. I think that's part of it. But what is it about your makeup and, those guys that you're racing against that allows you to keep doing this?
I really think it's never stopping. I'm light. I weigh 145 pounds or something, and
Hmm.
I'm 5'10", and I'm slender, so that's less burden on my muscles. And I live in the country. I live in a village in western Massachusetts where with lots of dirt roads and tempting places to run. And it's necessary to my mental stability,
Hmm.
to really wake up, I feel I have to run.
Yeah.
And and I'm doing lots. I'm running a company which with 4 newsletters, and I I had the counterpart to my crash on Greylock with the temporal artery was my technology research and conference and newsletter company in 2000 was going public, and I was hiring people like mad and making all these commitments, and I had, I think, 58 employees, and we were going public with Hambrick and Christ and Merrill Lynch,
Hmm.
and the .com crash
Yeah.
landed on, and at that point, everybody said, "Oh, don't worry, you got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. You lose 3/4 of them, and you'll still be." The company was valued at $38 million, which was
Hmm.
real money back in 2000,
Hmm.
and I didn't lose just uh, 75% of my subscribers. I lost 99%. It
Wow.
it turned out that just nobody in after the .com crash was buying my newsletters. It was
Mhm.
just kind of a complete disaster. But I made commitments of millions of dollars to all
Mhm.
these people.
Yeah.
So I have to work. I'm 86 and I'm still doing 4 newsletters, and I write for the Wall Street Journal, and I write a book my last book was a couple of years ago. And, and I'm, you know, I'm, and I couldn't do it if I wasn't running. I mean, if I
Yeah.
didn't run every day, I would not be able to write books in my 80s and, give speeches. I give speeches
Yeah.
pretty regularly, I'm active because I'm running. I'm not running because I'm active.
Yeah. I understand that 100%, and I agree, and I wonder when you're running and you're thinking about your newsletter or your next book or your next article or your next
No,
prediction,
no,
are
while
you
I'm running, I'm not thinking about these
you don't
things.
think about work, you don't
Uh,
what are you thinking
uh, uh,
about when you're running?
that's when I run, I'm thinking about the next, how fast I'm going, what the view is, uh, about the car coming in the
So you're in
front
the
of me,
moment,
and
you're in the
yeah,
moment.
I'm in the moment, and
Hmm.
I am not thinking about any of my books or highfalutin ideas. I'm focused on the next step. And that's really and if you don't, you fall,
Yeah,
if you're running out in the world rather than on a track, you really I mean, you'll cut a temporal artery and that'll dispose of
yeah,
you.
you gotta pay attention. What is running giving you though, George? I mean, I know it's keeping you physically fit, but it's giving you something. It's feeding something back to you mentally, that mental stimulation. What is the connection there? The superpower, I think, of exercise that it gives
Yeah,
us. What do you think that connection is?
that's a good question, and I'm how would I put it? It's completely different from intellectual life. I mean, it resuscitates my body,
Mhm.
and it gives me an hour and a half, or I run close to more than an hour almost every day. It it just is a complete escape and a different domain of activity that nonetheless makes challenges on the mind. You're aware of your environment, your surroundings, but it's you're plunging into the now. You're
Mhm.
leaving this world where you're preoccupied with some future goal or with some previous catastrophe or whatever, and you're in the now. And it's also competitive. I like to, I like races, and that's an exciting environment. Seeing people and try to pass them, and all this kind of tactical questions of a race keeps you in the now.
Yes.
You're and
Yes, I can see that competitive spirit, and it is that's a positive
yeah,
thing for
yeah.
sure. What do you do, like, diet-wise, and has that changed over time as you've gotten older?
I think I eat very simple food. My wife, we eat an awful lot of fish,
Mhm.
and I eat fish and vegetables and fruits and yogurt and nuts, and these. I have a simple diet. I don't. I mean, I go out to restaurants and eat exotic foods from time to time, but my general diet is just simple, um, ordinary food, vegetables and rice and potatoes
Yeah,
and fish and some beef,
yeah.
chicken, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty conventional food.
That lifestyle over time, I think that's led to
Yeah,
sounds like it led to that contributed to that longevity.
I think that's right.
Yeah. What about, you're competitive, so what about managing your own expectations over time? You know, you've
My
found your
wife will.
competitive lane, but have you had
Uh,
to manage your own expectations over time?
yeah, my wife will tell you I'm always disappointed that I'm just. I mean, it is kind of frustrating. I'm now discovering that I'm running the same courses 2 minutes to 3 minutes a mile slower than just 5 years ago when I was
Hmm.
80. I mean, when I was 80, I tended to run 9-minute miles or
Hmm.
even under 9-minute
Hmm.
miles. and now I'm 86 and I'm happy with 12-minute miles. You slow down, there's
Yeah.
no question, which means that if you're really preoccupied with your times, it's discouraging. So, but I don't run I used to run, I do 9 or 10 miles every day, and now I do between 4 and 7 miles
Yeah.
most days. Very rarely do very far much more than those. But they're hilly. They're really
Yeah. Well,
a
I mean,
lot of
it's all perspective, of course. I mean, right?
yeah,
I wouldn't expect anything different from you because you're competitive, and that I think that's what keeps you going, and it's
yeah.
inspirational to many of us hearing this. How much have has your uh, physical capabilities and your running changed from, let's say, from 75 to 80 versus 80 to 85?
Well, it's hard to tell because at 75, I was really, I was maybe the best hill racer over 75.
Uh,
At least, I won one national championship hill racing, and I was doing trail races all the
uh-huh.
time, and I didn't always win those. I had a competitor who was really good, and I won most of them, but not all of them. And it's really been since I met a friend of mine from down or nearby who's now lives in Dallas, but is Dolph Burley, who's a world decathlon champion over 60, I guess, and was over 50. He's a real amazing decathlete, and he's the one who got me involved in running a national championship races.
Uh-huh.
And he went to Turin with him in Poland for the World Championships in 1980.
Uh,
And so I got involved for the first time um, with him. And I didn't do great in Turin, but I loved the trip and the atmosphere
yeah.
and watching Dolph win, and all this was exciting. And
Yeah.
I guess I came in fourth in over 85, and no, over 80,
Yeah.
and I was 83 in the 10K, but I didn't feel good about it. Uh,
Yeah, because you're competitive. I mean,
I
so
guess
that's the
I'm,
thing, whether it's 9-minute miles or 12-minute miles,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah,
we're racing ourselves, right? That's what I like
yeah,
to think
yeah, yeah,
about.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
racing the clock. Like, I go to marathons. I'm not gonna win
yeah,
it, but I'm trying to get faster. I'm trying to do well in my age division. That's the beauty of it,
yeah,
right? That
yeah,
is the
yeah.
beauty, and there's not a lot of other sports like that, It's definitely a lifelong thing for sure. Let me ask
And
you.
doing, you're interested in time, and this maybe has focused me on time because I have a theory that I've written several books about, and I'm trying to get adopted, which is that real money is effectively time.
Yes.
It's and that when you debauch money, when you inflate money, or you are really trying to steal from the future, and
Huh,
that doesn't really pay off very well.
huh,
But
huh.
but I think my running may have impelled me toward this idea that money is really time, the time it takes you to earn it, and it's what remains scarce when everything else grows abundant.
Yes.
Uh, we live in a world of superabundance. Is my theory. I mean, uh, there is if you measure it by time prices, the amount of time a typical worker has to work to earn the money to buy goods and services. We are in a time of just superabundance. Everything is just drastically cheaper measured by time than it
Mhm.
was before, except for a few government dominated services like education and healthcare, things that are very regulated. But most goods and what your supercomputer in your pocket, and this kind of podcast that was impossible. And I mean, I would have to travel to wherever you are. I'm
Yeah.
doing this without any. Are you in Washington?
Seattle. Yeah. Hmm.
Seattle. I'm in Seattle quite a lot,
Yeah.
and I won a race in Seattle last time I was there.
Oh, yeah. Good. Well, which one was that?
That was a that was a trail race. It was a trail race. Oh boy, I should remember. It was in South Seattle. It was uh, by the water.
Yeah. So
But
by the park, there's a lot of parks over there in West Seattle,
yeah,
and
this
I mean, there's a
what
ton of trail race, a lot of
yeah,
races,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
It doesn't. But anyway, it was a very hilly trail
Yeah.
race
Yeah.
in
Yeah. We don't lack for
Seattle.
hills. We don't. You'd
Uh,
love the hills around here.
and I couldn't find where it started in this park, and so I started late, so I had to pass a lot of people to.
So there's an asterisk by that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Uh,
And I
I
ran the Seattle half marathon, and I
sure.
ran and I've run scores of races in Seattle over the
Yeah.
years because the Discovery Institute, which I've co-founded,
Yes.
is in Seattle. We're now moving to the Seattle Tower. You know that white tower in
Yes.
downtown Seattle?
I do know.
We're
Yeah.
gonna we're moving into there now,
Yeah. Yeah. I work
which is
downtown. I'm
kind
down
of
there a lot. So
like an iconic architecture.
yeah. I want to focus in on time that you're talking about because I think it's fascinating and I do think about this myself. And so is what you're working on, are you essentially talking about time as a form of currency basically because it's so valuable to us?
Yeah, I think the reason gold until 1971, essentially for more than 200 years, the Industrial Revolution occurred, the whole world economy uh, expanded, population tripled into the billions. I mean, and this was because gold was money. And and there are all sorts of theories about why gold is valuable, but my view is that it's because it really measures time,
Uh-huh.
and and the gold has become more difficult to mine about in proportion to the improvement of mining equipment. So uh, when at the gold rush in California, people could sift out gold in a little sieve. And now it takes 10 years to build some gigantic mine in South Africa.
Uh-huh.
But you end up with gold representing about the same amount of time and time prices. And so gold really represented time, and time is what remains scarce when everything else is abundant. We really live in an amazing age of abundant food and clothing and housing, even housing, although we managed to make housing scarce by
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
various misfortunes, which I could explore with
Yeah.
you, but
Mhm.
anyway, but it's mostly related to uh, the debauchery of our currency. It's the finance industry is stealing from the future, and it's most housing is owned by giant hedge funds and BlackRock, and they own and they bid up housing and then rent it back, and that is that I think attacks a very fundamental value and
Well, it
crucial
also,
crucial to social stability.
yeah.
The aspiration to own a home and to um, is a really important part of citizenship and motivation, and to reduce everybody to renters is a great error, I think.
Well, if you
And
want to own a home,
it comes from abandonment of time prices. If the finance people can just steal from the future, and the government steals from the future, I mean, $40 trillion of debt.
yes.
This is all debauching the future, debauching the currency, and stealing time from the workers of the world, if you want.
You,
Uh,
I think about the housing and time discussion, George. I think about if somebody wants to own a home, but they have to move further out from their job to afford that home.
yeah,
Therefore, the currency they're giving is time in the car, time in the commute,
yeah,
right?
that's
So
a good point. Yeah,
there is that trade-off.
there's a direct time trade-off, and but there's also monetary
Yes,
trade-off with
which is what you're talking about.
yeah.
So if all this technology that we have coming at us, the premise of a lot of it is to give us time back, but it feels like we are busier than ever, that we don't have as much time ever as we want. Maybe because no matter what we get, we fill it in with something. But isn't technology supposed to make us more efficient and give us more time back?
Yes, and it does, but if at the same time your housing expenses double, and your you know and your educational system stops working for a large portion of the population. I mean, it's there it means that the increased time that's signified by the plummeting time prices of almost any good or service you might mention are undermined by these crucial goods and services that are essential to people's lives, like their housing and their health and
Uh-huh.
their education.
And that's what sounds like you're writing about now. And I wondered, as a writer, I'm sure you have a lot of ideas that come to you as to what topic you want to chase and research and think about. How do you ultimately decide, which lane you're picking for your topics in your 20 plus books now? How are you deciding and weeding out what might be, one idea from another?
Well, I, s- I s- my big breakthrough was a book called Wealth and Poverty that
Uh-huh.
was President Reagan's favorite book. And
Uh-huh.
he gave it to Senator Dole in the hospital after Reagan was shot.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and he gave it out to all the cabinet, and it became a worldwide bestseller. And it really had a complete exposition of what's now termed supply side economics.
Uh-huh.
And I figured that I'd done economics. And during the course of writing it, I became fascinated by the microchip, by the silicon integrated circuit, the chip. And I've been writing about microchips ever since.
Uh-huh.
Books like Microcosm, and a book called Spirit of Enterprise that was about Micron Technology of Boise, Idaho, which before it went public, I wrote a whole book about Micron. And Micron now is the world's leading memory chip producer by some measures from time to time. Samsung tends to eclipse it, and maybe Hynix sometimes, but South Korean companies. But nonetheless, I've been writing about microchips since the 1980s, and now I believe the microchip era is over. And so this is what I'm writing about now. I'm writing about the end of microchips. And I wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal last month entitled The Coming End of Microchips. And it explains wafer scale integration using whole silicon wafers and putting all the memory on inscribing the memory on a 12-inch silicon wafer rather than dicing the wafer into hundreds of chips and sending them to the Philippines to be encapsulated in packages and then implanted on printed circuit boards in Shenzhen and China, and then sent back to the United States to be incorporated in computers and cell phones and whatever. But I believe that that you can put in that rather than having computers in a data center with gigawatts of power, we can have computers on a single 12-inch wafer, or maybe as many as 16 12-inch wafers can have a data center in a box. And I explain it in the Wall Street Journal and in my newsletters. I'm Gilder Technology Report. I'm constantly writing about these subjects. And
So on that subject, what's replacing? Who's producing that? Does that have anything to do with what NVIDIA is doing? And that might be a very basic question, I realize, but does that replace what NVIDIA is doing, or is there any crossover there?
It tends. It's called wafer scale, and you can listen to Jensen Huang of NVIDIA speak for endlessly, and he'll never mention wafer scale. But it's really the single greatest threat to the NVIDIA empire, and I'm sure he's got a major project doing it. Elon Musk had a wafer scale project that he couldn't consummate and that got spun out, called his Dojo computer. But a company called Cerebras in Sunnyvale, California, has produced a wafer scale device with 7,000 times as much memory bandwidth as NVIDIA's masses and masses of chips, all interconnected with giant copper sheaths and fiber optic cables and retailing constant conversions of electronics to optics and back, and huge amounts of power, gigawatts of power.
So is that relieving us of the power demands that we're seeing right now?
Yeah. Well, wafer scale with all the memory on the wafer itself uses very little power. And so if you really convert to wafer scale, the power burdens will still, or we still need a lot of electricity to sustain our lives. But if you can compare a data center that takes 2/3 of the land area of Manhattan to a data center in a box, you can see that it means there'll be a lot more data center capabilities with much less use of gigawatts of power. So that's so it's a moment of transition. I've
Mm.
constantly been predicting these moments of transition over
Yes,
the
you I
years.
that's
Um,
who you are, right? You're the futurist. You're constantly you're tracking technology, which is fascinating.
yeah.
That's one of the things about you that people love. And I want to ask you about that because when you wrote Life After Google, which was what, nine, I don't know, 9, 10 years ago or so, when did you write
Yeah,
that book?
yeah.
Right in there? Is
8
it?
years ago. Is it really 9 years ago? Maybe.
I-
It was, let's see, it's 2025,
Yeah.
and it was 2019 that I've spent 100 days in China. It was a bestseller in China,
Mm.
and
So
so I
that
sort of
book
can
that book, I mean, so much has changed in technology just since you wrote that book, George. So I'm wondering how often you're comparing your predictions in that book with where we are today, particularly around AI. What is your perspective on where AI stands today compared to where it stood, 7 years ago?
well, um, Life After Google, among other things, predicted cryptocurrencies. I
Hmm.
mean, it was the first major book about Bitcoin and the opportunities of cryptocurrencies. And cryptocurrencies have been massively significant and may well end up displacing a lot of the debauched currencies of the world. And so I don't think Life After Google was wrong. It was wrong about one company I wrote about called Luminar,
Hmm.
which makes LiDAR for self-driving cars, or for safer vehicles anyway. And Luminar just went bankrupt.
Hmm.
So that's a slight uh, setback for my prophetic powers, as
Hmm.
epitomized by Life After Google. But most of Life After Google is about cryptocurrencies and their potential.
And
And
blockchain. I
my
mean, blockchain was a big part
blockchain,
of that,
that's
right?
right, blockchain.
Yeah.
Blockchain is that. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wrote about Hedera hash graph, which is a hugely important
Hmm.
similar technology. And Life After Google is still relevant. It's still uh, and it was 7 or 8 years ago, not 9, I think, but maybe.
Yeah. And
Life After Capitalism was 2 years ago,
okay. And so
and
go ahead. Go ahead.
that's more about the time prices and
Yeah. So I think the reason I bring up artificial intelligence is, someone that studied technology as much as you have to see where we've come in a short amount of time. I would say in, it's probably been part of your vernacular for many years, but for most of us, it's really been the last 3 to 5 years where it's in the common discussion, and it just feels like every day it's it's really, a topic of discussion or a tool someone's using. What are your
yeah.
thoughts as far does it concern you, artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence is just another computer platform. I've been writing about computer platforms for 50 years or more, and AI is another development in this long line, each phase of which was associated with a lot of catastrophic or apocalyptic predictions.
Mhm.
Uh, Way back in 1956, uh, Frank McCarthy of the Dartmouth Conference and Stanford predicted that we would have artificial general intelligence after a summer of intense research.
Huh.
And And now they imagine that this somehow that these gigantic data centers that take billions of watts of power, more than whole cities, are somehow comparable to human brains, human minds that work on 12 to 14 watts
Huh.
and are not dependent on programming from the internet. I mean, I really think that this obsession of many of the key figures in AI with competing with human brains
Mhm.
is offensive.
Huh.
It's not, they aren't competing with human brains. If they just, I mean, any our cell phone can do all kinds of things we can't dream of doing. Uh, a plow, a tractor could do
Right.
things that farmers couldn't imagine accomplishing.
That's right.
This whole idea that suddenly we're going to usurp human brains in some singularity, which is another way of saying a new God,
Mhm.
which we're supposed to bow down and worship, is just a misconception of computer technology.
Those are great points, and that's encouraging, I think, to hear that from you. I want to ask you about of all the predictions you've made, along the way, some right, some wrong. That's the nature of your
Yeah.
business. Is there one that you're most proud of that you look at and you think you nailed it, and maybe the world knows or doesn't know, but is there one that jumps out at you more than others?
Well, I really, I'm famous for introducing Reagan to the microchip.
Huh.
I mean, I handed Reagan a microchip in the Oval Office, not in the Oval Office, but in one of his offices, and told him it would make SDI possible, the Strategic Defense Initiative. It would make it possible to intercept missiles, um, incoming missile attacks. That it could change the whole balance between offense and defense in military power. And we've just watched Israel intercept thousands and thousands of missiles and drones and every kind of device thrown at this small little desert nation in the Middle East. And it intercepted almost all of them. And I sort of think that's a triumph. Iron Dome,
Uh,
David Sling, all these defense systems, Iron Beam. They're developing a way to zap the missiles out of the sky as they come in
uh-huh.
with lasers, Iron Beam. And I really think that I got that pretty right with Reagan back in his office. And and Israel did more of the strategic defense than we did, really.
Di
And so we've learned from Israel,
uh,
and and uh, Israel has been a great center of microchips and our microchips from the time Intel built one of its first fabs in Kiryat Gat in the desert in Israel, and it's still one of their key wafer fabs in the world making microchips. This is Intel,
uh,
the big American chip company.
sure.
So I think that was pretty good. Then I went on to fiber optics and said that would change everything. And
In that moment, George, I want to ask you about that moment where you're talking to President Reagan about the microchip. There's a relationship there. Were you intimidated, and how did he react? Was he accepting your information and excited about it?
yeah, well, I had a Micron 16K DRAM. That's a dynamic random access memory chip. And I handed it to him. And he was very interested. He looked at it and really was very intrigued. And we talked for about an hour. And I can't remember everything we said, and that it wasn't recorded, and it's sort of lost in the midst of time. But he really was. Reagan was a very attentive listener. It was different from other politicians I've come to know over the years, and he really absorbed the significance of the microchip, and Moore's law with the sort of doubling in
Yes.
capability every couple of years.
Yes. So you're the other thing you're known for is identifying and predicting the smartphone, if I'm correct, right? There was
Yeah.
you were early on that idea.
I told Steve Jobs, and he passed out my book Life After Television.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, computer of the future, this is way back, maybe in 1989 or something, 1988, would be as portable as your watch, as personal as your wallet. It would navigate streets. It would recognize speech. It would collect your news and your mail. It just might not do Windows, which was the Microsoft operating system, but it would do doors. It opened doors to your future. I was famous for saying that for years.
Yes.
And I did probably influence Jobs, as he was thinking about this stuff all along. So I don't want to be made too grand claims,
Sure,
but he
but
did
it
this.
is
He bought my book and
Yeah.
distributed it to his associates. And I also told Bill Gates this.
Well, didn't Bill Gates write about some of this in the book The Road Ahead? And I don't know the timeline of when that book came out, but I remember reading it, and he was talking about the phone or your wallet-sized computer in your pocket or something along those lines.
Yeah. But that was when did he write The Road Ahead?
I don't
can't
know.
really.
I don't remember.
And he was pretty good. But when I was debating him, I was saying that this wasn't going to be a Windows device.
Right.
This was going to be linked to fiber optics was going to make bandwidth abundant. And that was my second big prediction. And I really think that what AI represents is that when the network becomes as fast as the backplane of the computer hollows out and spreads across the network, and the future profits in the industry come from search and sort. And that's what Eric Schmidt told me when he was at Sun Microsystems, and I dubbed that Schmidt's Law. And I really believe that AI is the triumph of Schmidt's Law. It says once the network comes as fast as the computer can be as big as the network. And that's what's represented by these data centers, which I think are going to give way now to wafer scale computing.
George, the amount of names that you've mentioned, and it's not name dropping, it's the world you've lived, this life you've lived with these names, Reagan, Jobs, Eric Schmidt. And do you ever think back and reflect on your life and all of these people that you've interacted with?
I do, but I don't really interact with, I don't go around collecting famous names. I mean, Reagan, that was I was a speechwriter briefly for Reagan, and my book was such a success that I never had to write speeches anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the real wealth and poverty really released me from the necessity of writing speeches for politicians, which I did for early in my life, and I was happy to escape that.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote them for Romney and Javits, and I even wrote speeches for Dole. I
Mm-hmm.
wrote them for Bush, and you know, I wrote a lot of speeches for various Republican politicians over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and I always used to like to write them at night, so I wouldn't have to be too influenced by the politicians themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
might imagine what they wanted to say, but I've always supposed that I could write it better and say it better if I wasn't bound to some specific set of formulations that they happened to occur to them when they spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway,
Well, that
uh,
you've interacted with a lot of amazing people, and I think they're drawn to you because of your writing. And um, I wonder about we talked about time a little bit. Your perspective on time as you get older, has that changed? Is it more valuable to you? I talked on this podcast a few times about that subject and the finite resource that time is. I'm just wondering if your perspective has changed.
no, I mean, it's a finite diminishing resource for old fogies like me. And I must admit that crucial to my ability to function in my 80s is running. I mean, it really is vital that I go out and run every day. This afternoon, I didn't. I had something else I had to do this morning, and then I had this interview. So I haven't run yet
Oh
today, and I
boy.
feel slightly uh, deprived as a result. I
Yes.
may
Well,
have to go to a fitness center and work on an elliptical machine, which is good for an occasional. It doesn't stress your legs as much, and so I've learned to use fitness centers.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
well, I'm surprised at how much outside running you're doing out there in the Northeast. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that's impressive. I mean, that it's not always easy to
Well,
get outside.
if you do a lot of cross country skiing, you don't imagine that cold weather is hostile to uh, exercise perambulation across the countryside.
Yeah. Well, what's next for you? We started with running. Let's end with running. Are you going back to the world's 10K in 2026?
I think so. Next, I think is probably the Boilermaker. I
Okay.
won the Stockade-a-thon. These are 15K races, and about a month ago, I ran the Stockade-a-thon in Schenectady, and I'll probably do the Boilermaker in Utica this year, and that's hard for me now. 15K
Yeah.
is probably like what a marathon is to you.
That's a
It's
oh yeah, that's a good, what is that, 9 miles, right? You're
yeah,
doing
yeah,
9.3 miles there.
yeah,
Um, well,
and
keep it moving. That's great.
I'll try to do the. I don't know whether I'll do the worlds again. We'll see. Uh, it just depends whether I'm in shape and um, whether it fits with my life,
Yeah,
and we'll see.
good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, and I'm sorry you
I
missed
think
your
it's
run.
in Korea this year. Next year, it's
Oh,
going to be in Korea, and I might want to go to South Korea to run a race, but it sounds a little arduous.
that's a
So
lot.
we'll see.
That's a lot.
If I'm
Well,
really in shape, maybe I'll do it.
yeah. Look, and you took time to do this. You gave up running to do this, so I know that's important to you. So I
Right.
appreciate it. You know, your thoughts. Where can people find you? I want to put links in, and I know a few of them, and I can put links in. But from you, what's the best way to follow you in your work?
I think probably, well, Gilder Technology Report. Uh, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm Strava.
Uh-huh.
Strava is good. I'm active on Strava. And all my runs, not my fitness center stints, but I put all my runs on Strava.
Yeah, I'll look there.
So I do Strava, and those are the ways I can be reached.
That's great.
George Gilder and Strava.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're on LinkedIn too. I don't know if you're active on there, but I saw you on LinkedIn
I'm
too.
less active in
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on it, but
Yeah.
I'm not active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Strava and more active on Facebook, actually,
Well, I
as
think
an
looking you up on Strava is the best thing someone can do because they're going to get up in the morning if they look at Strava, particularly if they're on the West Coast, and they're going to see George Gilder just put in 90 minutes up in Massachusetts, and you therefore have no excuse not to go out and do what you need to do.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg. I really appreciate this
Y-
interview, and
yeah, it was great, George.
congratulations on Safari. Are you racing? You must be in races all the time.
I try to do a couple
Have we ever run in the same race?
I don't know. I'm coming out to Boston in April for the marathon.
Okay.
Been out there a
Yeah.
few
All
times,
right.
so
All
I'll
right.
be out there. I don't know if we've been in the same race, but I try to do one or two marathons a year just to
Yeah.
keep moving,
Yeah. Yeah.
what
Keep moving.
what we got to do. Yeah. And so I appreciate your time. I wish you the best. We'll put links in, and thanks for being an inspiration to us.
Thank you so much, Greg.